Hi, and welcome to the Clive Barker podcast. With us today is Christian.
Hello.
And Jose.
Hi. Hey, guys.
I'm Ryan. And now it's time for the Occupy Midian Report by Crystal Rain, sponsored by www.bringbacknightbreed.blogspot.com.
This is the first Occupy Midian report since the Monster Mania event in New Jersey. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, and I cannot wait to hear Ryan's commentary about his experiences while there. For others, like me, who couldn't be at this event, there are some amazing fan photos and videos from Monster Mania that have been posted on the Occupy Midian Facebook group's wall. Ann Bobby, who plays Lori in the film, has called the Monster Mania weekend the most fun she's ever had with clothes on, and I do believe that is saying something. Also, during the Q&A panel, Ann called for more letters to be sent to Morgan Creek. Tell them why the Cabal cut is important to you and ask them when you can buy it on Blu-ray or DVD. There is a form letter on Occupy Midian's Facebook page under the Files tab for you to copy and use if you need to. And Morgan Creek's address is on there as well. You'll want to edit the letter to include your name and which event you saw the Cabal cut at. Even though I was unable to attend Monster Mania, I did get to view part of the Q&A panel thanks to Christian from the Occupy Midian group and the wonderful invention called YouTube. You can find links to the Q&A video on, yep, you guessed it, the Occupy Midian Facebook page. Seriously, if you haven't joined yet, you really should. We almost always have some interesting news or at least some great conversation going on over there. I haven't done an update on the petition lately, but as of now, there are over 7,000 signatures. You can find a link to the petition in the top left corner of OccupyMidian.com. As for the future of the Cabal cut, there are currently 7 upcoming screenings, 6 of which take place in the UK and 1 that will be in Germany. For more information on where those screenings will be held, please visit Occupy Midian's website and click on the screenings link. We are still encouraging you to sign the petition if you have not. Send letters to Morgan Creek to help them realize how many people are truly interested in this film being properly released, and to do Occupy Midian signed photos and testimonial videos. For ideas on the photos, view the Occupy Midian signs under the Photos tab on the Occupy Midian Facebook group. Hopefully, with all the publicity that we are gaining and with your help, we can accomplish this goal. We get closer every single day. Perhaps soon, we will be able to free the tribes of the moon.
Monster Mania was great. I think if I had any criticisms, it would be I like everything in the movie, and I didn't like that some of it was cut down. And it seems like it wasn't all based on Clive Barker's feedback. It seems like some of it was based on feedback from critics and fans.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, that Clive originally gave 5 small points for change, cutting a line here and there.
And moving things around and adding music and stuff like that.
Which is, fair enough, but it was, I think, even, you were telling me about a scene that you saw previously with 2 of the cops on a bridge shooting down for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Like, elongated scene.
Yeah, two of the hillbillies were just, sitting there with their legs dangling on a bridge in Midian and shooting people as they ran by underneath. And it was so, it had such a dark, kind of depressing tone. And I think that we've backslid a little bit towards the tone of the original movie by not having that. And, it's more, it's in a scale between, action sequence and depressing genocide, it's kind of slid a little bit back towards the action sequence.
Yeah, I suppose having to cut down a film, you're going to have to take out the longest scenes that aren't necessarily main plot points.
Yeah. I
mean, at least it's all going to appear, every bit of footage is going to appear. Not necessarily in the cut, but it will appear on the Blu-ray.
And in the Q&A, I had mentioned that I was wondering if they had put more of the DVD footage back in, and the reason I asked that was because there's the scene where Boone goes to Decker's office, after Decker had been calling him, and And in the Mad Monster Party cut that I saw, that was all in the VHS quality footage, and the scene was extended. And at the end, Boone grabbed, with both hands grabbed Decker's jacket, and was kind of shaking him and tell me I didn't do it, and I couldn't possibly have done this. And then he sort of collapses and and they're hugging each other, and it's really kind of awkward. And Decker's sort of like, what do I do with this? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was kind of cool, and I don't know. I mean, I think because I love this movie so much, I want every little extra thing to be in it because this is the extended cut.
Was the quality of that scene any worse than the extra bits that were put in?
No, actually, it was a little better because it was light. You know what I mean? Like it was interior and it was bright. Mm-hmm. A lot of the Midian stuff is is dark, so it makes it muddier, I think, and harder to see.
Yeah. Well, if I can share some of my feedback on what you guys were discussing, I think that. I understand what you're saying, that some cuts might not have been suggested by Clive, or there were probably like feedback from critics and everything. But, I mean, even fans, and especially some blogs and reviewers, have said that they think that the inclusion of all that Midian massacres footage, and I'm just saying this because I haven't seen the movie yet, that they say that it seems to go on for a long time, and it might cause some pacing problems with the movie on that act. Mm-hmm. So I understand that this is still being trimmed a little bit here and there, because in the beginning, they had scenes where the same character died twice. That was just thrown in there without, let's see what we can come up with, and they just started making these little alterations to, okay, well, maybe this doesn't work, or maybe this wasn't supposed to be in here, or maybe we can move this over there, And I understand that they would still tweak it, and I might be pessimistic about some things, but in others, I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible. And I still think that the Cabal cut, as people are seeing it right now, I'm hoping it won't be the final product that will be released. Yeah. I'm hoping that we will be able to restore the actual film elements and that they will be found. So if that happens, then this edit will just be a guideline. Yeah, because you'll have to re-edit it
from the beginning again. As soon as the tape making's done of every bit of footage, like everything that's got, the whole edit's going to have to start from the beginning. And some bits might go that are there now, and some other bits might be reinstated because through the quality, it's maybe a lot more powerful. Like that bit on the bridge, in perfect quality, it could be a really powerful scene, but at the moment, it might be some people going, it went on a bit too long, or... I mean, we don't really know because there's a long road ahead because there's a lot of sound mixing, Foley work, dubbing, much. So I think it's great that the public have been able to see the work in progress. And I think that's where a lot of the critics have got it kind of mistaken. They think that what they're seeing is just going to be, when they buy it, it will be exactly the same as that, but in Blu-ray quality.
Yeah.
Because there's been how could they release it at this stage? And it's like, well...
Right. I'm sorry. I think that the only reason this movie will ever get released as a work print form is really if there is no chance at all that they can find the footage, the film elements. Yeah. But I would still like to think that eventually, someone is going to say, well, let's take another look. I'll be honest. I don't really believe that there has been any kind of exhausting search done for the movie elements. By Morgan Creek or Fox. I don't really believe that. I think they're still like, well, let's see what happens with this movie. And then Occupy Midian started, pushing it forward, and they started saying, oh, well, it turns out that there might be something in this for us after all. So let's let them see what they can come up with, and tell them that you guys can go ahead and restore the movie. And maybe if the time comes and they'll see like, okay, well, it's time to actually get this done and release it as a Blu-ray or a DVD, that they will actually say, well, you know what, then let's try again and let's see if we can find the film elements. This is just my speculation, but I'm thinking that there might be in the future a more hands-on approach to this from Morgan Creek. I really hope so, because not in terms of editing in any way, of course, but in terms of saying, okay, we own the film. Let's see if we can help you guys, make a better version of the Cabal cut so we can release this on Blu-ray. Because if it's going to be released in Blu-ray, they have to try and get the best quality possible. It doesn't make any sense to release a work print version on a Blu-ray. Yeah. So I'm really hoping for that. And
for space it does. I mean, you could fit a lot more on a Blu-ray than you can on a DVD.
Sure, you can put the two versions on the same disc, no problem.
Yeah.
And I guess I would like to see that happen. And I'm still thinking that this is just part of the journey, but not the final destination. So I'm not, Russell has assured us that every single bit of footage that they find extra will end up being in the final product one way or the other, as an extra or in the movie. So, if someone actually wants to say, well, I wish this bit was back in the movie, well, you can always do that yourself.
Yeah, but, and they've got branching things where on a lot of the Blu-rays coming out now that are special editions, you have the version director's cut, but then you have the option for branching in every single deleted scene where it would have been. And I'm hoping that could happen as well. So not just theatrical and Cabal cut, you'll also have all footage cut.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, there was another scene too of with like Laurie and Cheryl in the car. Just after they had stopped for aspirin. Because Cheryl was so hungover. And just it's just little stuff, that was cut that I don't know.
I have this question for you guys because I've, haven't seen the movie, but I noticed that in what I've seen from trailers and stuff, there are parts of sequences and there are bits and pieces here and there that instead of using the DVD footage, Russell used the VHS footage. Mm-hmm. Yes. Are there still any parts of the movie that are present in the DVD that are in the Cabal cut, but using VHS footage instead? Because I understand that. Okay, well,
basically, it's most of them. There's most of the scenes that we see in the theatrical print that are now in the Cabal cut as a VHS. They're exactly the same shots, but they might be just slightly elongated for a sentence or a facial expression. So the VHS print has been used in that instead, because it's just a tiny bit longer.
The Narcisse hospital scene is a good example of that.
And I think that just from a few little seconds, that improves the scene 100%.
Yeah.
It's like see Narcisse being more insane and kind of, instead of just muttering at the window for a bit and then turning around and being completely fine, his emotions switching constantly, and he's muttering to himself a lot more, which I thought was a lot more powerful for the character. Yeah. And the only scene I can see within the actual Cabal cut that is more or less, well, I think it's exact, is the bit in the baptism chamber, or whatever they call it, between Boone and Larsberg. It's more or less identical. And I mean, if I put them side by side, it might be a very slightly bit longer, I'm not sure. But to me, it seemed like it was exactly the same scene put in there. So, who knows? I'll have to look at them side by side.
Well, and also, I think they restored Baphomet's voice from the DVD this time?
Yes, because they didn't want to chop and change because it was one scene where he's talking.
At Mad Monster Party, he had like a normal person's voice from the VHS.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think I understand. I think I understand why Russell would do that, to preserve the pacing of those scenes that have been slightly extended. Maybe if he had, trying to get all the best available footage into the movie would require cutting sometimes too quickly between VHS footage and DVD footage. Maybe that would bring people out of the scene instead of, So that's one of the things that's going to change eventually. All the available footage in DVD quality will have to be put in the movie where it shows up in the Cabal cuts. They're not going to downgrade some scenes just because they're extended. They're not going to. I'm hoping they don't include material that's less than clear. just because one scene is extended and, they don't want to mess it up too much. But yeah, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
You guys seen the Halloween 6 producer's cut?
Yes.
No.
Because it intercuts seamlessly between VHS footage and DVD. I personally don't think it brings me too much out of the movie, but they do this almost seamlessly. It's like one moment you're watching clear footage, the next, almost seamlessly, you realize, oh, well, this is work print footage now. And sometimes it's just for 1 second at the end of one particular shot or something like that. And I think it works pretty well. So I really would prefer that all available footage is put in the cut at the best possible quality.
Well, and I think that might change when they burn the VHS too, or then maybe it'll be a little closer to the DVD quality, and then it wouldn't be so jarring.
Well, I saw there's a lot of talk when it talks about tape baking, about the process of baking the tape, and actually puts everything back into it. The best thing everyone talks about is Alien 3.
Yeah.
I had the work print of Alien 3 before the tape baking happened. And I have compared the two of what you get on the final DVD after baking and before. And it basically raises from the worst quality of the Cabal cut to the theatrical print. It's basically, I think it might be, 1% less perfect, but it will be DVD releasable. It won't be 1080p, but even if the footage isn't found as actual film, the quality we'll get will be, the cutting will be seamless. Basically, they get that it is actually exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of because when VHS degrades, when it's all in a spool, a lot of the image over time will transpose onto the back of the other film that's lying on it, and it's because over time the chemicals are breaking down. What baking does is removes all the chemicals that are on the other part of the tape that's lying on it, and actually puts it back into it, and it creates a kind of It doesn't come out perfectly. I think it takes about 3 weeks of heating it up, and you can only play it once because it's destroyed. But what comes out is not a perfect image. It's a kind of a more or less a composite cut that then that is what you will remaster. So it's like, have you ever seen footage that they film that just doesn't have the sheen of film, but it's good quality? It's kind of like that. There'll be like little marks on it, which they'll just go through and clean up afterwards. But it's a strange thing, and it's not really done for films in the last 50, 60 years. It was exclusively originally done for sort of 35 and 16mm films, but it does work just as well on VHS.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know that. So I realized it must have been some kind of restoring technique, but I wasn't really aware of what it involved. So that's pretty cool.
I can cut that into when we were talking about the baking the film. That's a good explanation for everybody, because I didn't know what it meant either. I mean, it just sounds like magic to me.
It more or less is. You can actually do it at home with, although it's risky, you can do it with a dehumidifier, a hairdryer, or your oven. But the only problem is, if you don't know what you're doing, you're risking melting everything.
Yeah. And hopefully they could still make the theatrical cut in high definition.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, they can upscale that without a problem. Because there are 35mm prints of that film, obviously from the cinema case.
So I guess in Clive Barker news, there was a correction. We had reported, because this is the way it came through in the news, is that Clive Barker was going to be directing this movie for the Amazon studio, Gladiators versus Zombies. But he's writing it. He's not directing it.
I think obviously that is probably to do with his current health as well. Maybe.
I don't know if and from what I had heard, he was never really planning to direct it, which does make more sense.
Well, I know that there's a plan for a few films of Clive Barker Presents of adaptations of his short stories.
Yeah,
like Jacqueline S and things like that. So I think this is under the auspices of the Clive Barker Presents. It'll be Clive Barker Presents Zombies versus Gladiators.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I can see that.
So the next thing here, we've got Jonathan Q, who's been on our podcast before, did some short interviews with some of the cast from Nightbreed and the Hellraiser movies. So we'll go through those. So here he interviewed Ann Bobby, Craig Sheffer, Barbie Wilde, and Claire Higgins.
So we're here with Ann Bobby, and following up on your recent appearance on the Clive Barker podcast. So now that you've seen the Occupy Midian movement burgeoning, thanks in no part, I believe, if I'm correct, you helped name the movement, did you not?
I did, darn it all, I sure did. I was the one who said what we need to do is Occupy Midian, and I had been very involved in Occupy Wall Street, so Occupy Midian just seemed like a natural thing. And the movement took off even faster, I think, than Occupy Wall Street did. And it's just as lasting. I'm really thrilled at the endurance of it.
That's fantastic.
So wonderful.
So now looking back also on the filming experience for Nightbreed, any further thoughts since you've started doing conventions? Looking back, has your perspective on the experience changed or become like fonder or more sharp in relief in your mind?
What's extraordinary for me is speaking to the fans. Two things have happened. Firstly, I've started to really fall in love with the mythology of Nightbreed more and more, especially with the Cabal cut. Talking to the fans also, getting to see who they love, and really feeling that connection is extraordinary. It's been a real game changer for me.
And we thank you for your contributions to the Occupy Midian movement.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Let me just say one last thing.
Yes?
So when you appeared, I saw you off Broadway on I Love You, You're Perfect Now, Change.
Oh my goodness.
And I wanted to let you know that I was the one who that day mistakenly told them, oh, she was in Love, Lost, and What I Wore, and I messed up the title of the show. So that was completely my fault, and I just wanted to apologize. But
apologize.
I absolutely loved you in that show. It was a wonderful show off Broadway, and I was delighted to be able to see you.
I loved doing it.
Fantastic.
I loved doing that show.
Well, I hope we get to see you at more conventions, and thank you so much.
I shall. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
What are your thoughts on the different experiences between filming Nightbreed and Hellraiser Inferno? Like compare and contrast. Which did you enjoy more?
I love both films. Completely different experiences. One was a studio, one was an independent. So one had, huge budget, big sets, and tons of characters. And of course, Inferno was pretty much me and in this dark little world. So they're both incredible, separate but wonderful experiences.
Now looking back now on the Nightbreed experience and knowing about the Occupy Midian movement that's going on to push for a Blu-ray release, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I love it, man. I mean, the new cut is seriously different, and it's Clive's vision. So we're all hoping that gets out there.
Fantastic. Any messages for your fans?
No, just man. Thanks for being my fans, man.
All right. Thank you very much. So I'm here with Barbie Wilde. Just wondering, here at this 25th anniversary of Hellraiser, what are your thoughts now, looking back now, have your thoughts over the past 6 years since your appearance here at the convention changed your perspective on the filming or on the fans?
No, I'm just always thrilled to see that people recognize that what was a pretty small British horror film is still loved and still terrifying people. It's wonderful. And also, it's given me an opportunity because 3 years ago, was it 3 years ago? Yeah. We did an anthology called The Hellbound Hearts, which was about
the books.
Yeah, based on the original novella of Clive's. And so that was my first horror story that I did, short story. And I've done 3 more since in different anthologies. So it's really been a good year for writing and all that sort of stuff.
That's wonderful. Now, what aspects of did you draw upon specific aspects of your performance in Hellbound to come up with your stories and for the
told very firmly it has to be based on the novella because of certain issues with the film. But if you read the novella, the lead Cenobite is actually female.
That's right.
So what the editor said, could you do from a female Cenobite viewpoint, but she's not necessarily the female Cenobite, you know what I mean? But and also I worked on Gary Tunnicliffe's idea that she might have been a nun in a previous life. So that's why I wrote Sister Celeste in that basis. So.
Well, that's fantastic. So, any last thoughts for your fans? I know you're very active on social networking, and your fans adore that. We all do. And just wondering if you have any messages or any last thoughts for your fans?
Well, I've got a novel coming out on the 1st of November. It's called The Venus Complex on Comet Press. Please take one. And, if you're interested in dark crime, it's really, It's disturbing, it's erotic, it's nasty.
Okay.
But it's not horror, though. Okay. But it's sort of exploring the mindscape of a serial killer.
That works for me. I'm actually a forensic biologist for New York. So,
oh, wow, that's so cool.
So this is that kind of thing's right up my alley.
Oh, my God. Well, you will be, I mean, I really tried hard with my research to keep it as good as I could get it. And
outstanding.
You can feel free to say, you got that right.
Well, I look forward to reading it, and thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming to Monster Mania again.
Oh, well, it's great. It's wonderful meeting all these wonderful people.
And I'm here with Claire Higgins. Miss Higgins, what are your thoughts on Hellraiser looking back now that it's been 25 years? Your thoughts on the experience of filming both the first and second parts?
I'm absolutely amazed that a film I did that I had such fun doing in this tiny little house in Dollis Hill in London, a really beaten up little place too. We released it, we didn't think anything was going to happen to it, and here I am 25 years later with a family of fans. And actually, I want to say a big thank you to Clive, because he invented the whole thing. He started something massive. He changed something culturally. And my only regret is that he's not here this weekend. But he's here in spirit.
Indeed.
And I just send him all my love, and I really, really, really hope and pray that he's going to be here next time.
As do we all.
Yeah.
So what were your initial reactions when you heard that a second film was going to be made? Did they approach you immediately, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I said, yes, please. And they said, and you're even worse than you were. You're even more evil than you were. I said, okay, go ahead. Try and make me more evil than I was. And of course, they made me the Queen of Hell.
Indeed.
Where can you go from there? You can't go anywhere from there.
It's a good thing to put on the resume, certainly, Queen of Hell.
I am the Queen of Hell.
Outstanding.
No one else has that on their resume. So again, huge thank you to Clive for bringing me here. Really
wonderful.
And it's like a family. It really is. It's wonderful to be here.
Any last message for your fans?
Thank you, and thank you for being like a family. So wherever I go in the world, literally, as a Hellraiser fan somewhere in the corner, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And here's the Nightbreed panel, the Q&A, also courtesy of Christian Francis.
Yeah, so we're here to introduce Nightbreed to you guys. What you're going to watch right now is a radically different Nightbreed than you would ever seen before. You need to say a few words before it starts. This movie was discovered by Mark here, and there's a little. You want to tell a little story about how you came across it?
It's an interesting story. I spoke with Clive when I found out that there had been footage missing. I had no idea. And I talked to him about it. I said, what can I do to help get this made? He sent me with a couple of numbers out into the world, and basically said Godspeed. And so I just started cold calling people, and one of the people I ended up talking to was Mark Goldblatt, who edited the film. And he said somewhere a cut has to exist of the rough that he made. And he said, he remembered seeing all the footage, he remembered being there, and so it had to be somewhere. So we began our search, and though we discovered, as far as we know, that the film footage is still lost, what we did find during some spring cleaning at Clive's office was a PAL VHS tape that had Mark Goldblatt's original cut on it. And, we watched that. Well, I tried to watch it, but it was PAL, so I couldn't watch it here in the States. I gave it to the people that run Clive's website. They digitized it. They sent the footage back, and lo and behold, it was what you're seeing now. But as this gentleman here, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, absolutely. Who was anyone else in Indiana in 2010 at the Horror Night convention? Okay, all right. Well, we screened basically what we found, which was just the rough footage. And Mike can attest, it was patchy. God bless him, he stayed through the whole thing. There were bits without sound, there were bits without picture, but it was all there. And when Russell found out about this, he was just as excited as I was, but he had a plan.
Yeah, so I do a lot of work with Mark trust. And I took the work print home, and I under false pretenses, said that I just wanted to watch it. And I basically took it home, and I had two versions of Nightbreed scripts, the original ones that Clive had written. And I basically reread those scripts, reread the novel, and I took, luckily I'm a filmmaker, so I then digitized everything that we got. I digitized Nightbreed, and I cut it all up into little chunks. And I started again with the movie from scratch. So basically, I followed Clive's original script, and I reconstructed the movie from all the different sources that we had. So, and then I put this together diligently, wanting to see all the missing footage, wanting to understand the movie and watch it. And actually, I wanted to watch it myself. I made this movie to watch myself. Seriously, that's what I did. And I worked with an editor, we made it, and the first version was kind of ropey, you know, because we hadn't done sign work or anything like that. But I still took it, and Mark watched it. He spotted that a character died twice in it.
We did the first cut had everything, and the reshoots, and so there were a couple of double ups.
Yeah, sure. So basically, what we did from that point is I took it away again, and Mark had actually discovered a second work print with a musical number in it that was really famous.
Which you will see.
Yeah, which you'll see in here. So basically, I then took that work print and then I synthesized all of that into there, and then Clive watched it, which was a kind of a revelation because he became very emotional and he said, "This is the film I wanted to make." And the most fantastic thing was in all that process, he told me to make 3 changes to the edit that I'd created. And he absolutely loved it, and you know, I made those changes, and then we screened it in North Carolina. Yeah, and
Monster Park.
Yeah, and then basically
took off.
It took a life of its own, and we continue to work on it. A lot of the original cast are here tonight, and they're going to come and talk after the movie. But we dubbed Bradley's voice back in, so we took the German guy out, and we basically made the film. And it just occurred to me when I was making this that I was actually making Cabal. Right, so if anybody's a fan of that book, right, so am I. I'm a huge fan, and that's what I've made. So I've made Cabal, right, and so all you people that have watched Nightbreed know that different people die in Nightbreed and die in Cabal. So it's absolutely faithful to Cabal, 100% faithful to it. So what you're going to see is Cabal on the screen. Now, last thing before we run away is you're obviously watching different mediums here. I've done an incredible amount of work to make it watchable, but there are still elements that come from VHS.
VHS tapes that were in a storage locker for 20 years.
Yeah, and I've cleaned them up as much as you could clean them up using, modern software. Our plan is, and what you're helping us with, is to get Morgan Creek or the 20th Century Fox or whoever's got the footage to give it back to us, because this film is now viable because of all your love and appreciation, and that there's a market for it to be released. And the very least that I'm going to do is I'm going to re-digitize the VHS tapes via the BFI in England, and we're basically going to bake the tapes for 3 weeks in an oven, and you can only play them once, and the tapes come out at pretty much about 90% DVD quality. So they would look, really quite strong, and that, if we can't find the footage, that's what we plan to do. And we're in negotiations to do all of that now. The film company are interested, and we're screening the movie next week. There isn't as many of you guys here tonight as there will be tomorrow or the next day, but in London next Friday we're screening it, and we sold 1,300 tickets. And that's for a film that I made so I could watch it and he could watch it.
It was all selfishly motivated.
So it goes to show that you guys and the power hour that you had. So if there's anybody here that hasn't joined Occupy Midian or been to the website, all I ask from you tonight is that you go there and you support us. And please come to the table and over the weekend and tell me and Mark what you thought of the film. Alright? Because that's what we want to know, what you think. The film has evolved because of your feedback. And what you're watching is version 5 tonight. So it'll change and change and change, and you can help it change. So thank you very much one and all, and we'll see you in 144 minutes. Enjoy.
Stay out of the sun.
The condoms will explode up your back.
If you're lucky.
Hi everybody. Thank you. Welcome to the Cabal Cup panel. I'm not going to call it the Nightbreed panel. Let's call it the Cabal Cup panel.
Yeah!
Yay! Thanks for staying and thanks for watching it. That's really good. So I guess we'd like to start by you guys asking us some questions. So more than anything else, this is for you. So anybody want to ask anything about what you've just seen? Okay, what's that?
I have two. During Adrian's press conference, you acted up without makeup. The reporter asked the question.
No.
No?
Go on, carry on.
Okay.
Doug rarely comes out without makeup these days.
Yeah. Make a note of that one and tell when it turns up. Well, second question, go on.
Are there any plans with Rachel's voice as far as the final?
Yeah, that sound mix is in vinyl. That's as far as we've got. I mean, the big thing here is that nobody gave us any money. So, dubbing Doug's voice, I had to use interesting memes. I invited him to come and give a talk at the university I teach at. The university brought him up for the day. We screened Hellraiser. Well, Hellraiser was on. We went to a sound recording studio and dubbed his voice. And then I put him on a train and sent him home. So we did many interesting things to make this happen. So lots of support. But all the actors involved, it is my hope that we bring them in, we do a proper sound mix, and everything. Everything at the moment is as far as we've got with the movie. So we are going to take it further. Yeah, I promise.
Two questions as well. One, I've asked Clive several times where the location was for the graveyard and stuff, and I think Simon told me one time it was a sound stage or something.
It was the backlot, I think, of Pinewood Studios.
There were two parts for the graveyard. Part of it was the backlot, which is it was basically a field.
The above ground portion?
The above ground portion was a field that was part of Pinewood, but was basically they imported all these very Canadian looking weeds. I don't know. They were Canadian weeds. And a couple of weeks in, they started to get really moldy and kind of fluffy. My allergies were killing me doing all of that. But then the actual necropolis, where a lot of the dramatic actions were taking place, that was F stage, I think. F stage of Pinewood Studios, where they filmed To Serve and Love.
And the second part was about the priest. And back in the day, Clive had that haircut like that, and so I thought it odd that he cast the priest to sort of have his same haircut.
I think of it as a mini mullet.
And then when the sheriff called him a degrading name, and like the eroticism that he has in his personal style. I was wondering if there was like symbolism of him placing himself as maybe kind of like that actor as being the priest or something.
Maybe it was the mini mullet memo.
The guy that played the priest was Clive Barker as well. So.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So there's a symbiotic relationship between the author and the character.
Right on.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. So that's as much as we can tell you about that without Clive answering it.
Right.
Yeah, without being sued. I wasn't sure we could say that. I'm glad you said it.
I got nothing to lose. Any other questions? There was a couple down here. Guy in the front.
Question for the actors. Now I haven't seen the Cabal, basically Cabal. What was your favorite part in the restored version?
The bit where I speak. That's my voice at the end of the movie. I'm so pleased. But I do plan to cut him out of the next version. Yeah, it does get a bit long. Oh, thank you.
My favorite part, and I think I told a few of you earlier, was seeing the expanded version of Laurie rescuing Babette for a very, very personal reason. I have since then moved into the world of animal rescue to the point where I've actually written 2 books based on my experiences in animal hospitals. And I watched in Charlotte when I first saw the Cabal cut, I saw this expanded scene of me, at 21 years of age, basically doing all the things I do to coax dogs out of hiding places. I was doing my first animal rescue in that scene, and that really blew me away when I first saw it. That's my favorite.
I like the fact that when we first watched it, Craig, you turned around and you called it an art film.
Yeah.
Rather than anything else. You said it's a piece of art. Why did you think that when you watched it for the first time?
Well, because the other one was obviously like attempting to be a blockbuster in terms of its sort of standard narrative, and they created in the original Nightbreed, they created the bad guy, David Cronenberg. He was never really supposed to be, a traditional bad guy. The bad guys were supposed to be, the townspeople. It's this, the misfits that are being attacked by who seem to be the respectable people. So I think this turned it back into what it was supposed to be, which is that, as opposed to sort of a traditional, there's this guy in the mask who's killing everybody, and this shows you sort of the town people's disregard for what's different than what they are. So, and also just the darkness of, there was so much more of the graveyard, which to me was really cool. It wasn't about, once again getting into it traditionally, where it's just like the talking, the narrative. You have all these sections where it's just the action happening and the images as opposed to the words, which is, I think, really cool. That's what I like most about it.
I haven't seen it yet, but actually you talking about the townspeople reminds me of Beauty and the Beast. The townspeople killed the beast! And it's that same imagery, isn't it?
Yep. Exactly. Alright, so somebody over there had a question.
It's like when you go to a football game, isn't it, son?
Okay, guys, got another question over here.
First, I just have to say, Nightbreed is my all-time favorite movie. Thank you so much for going through the effort and going together and bring all this up. It's amazing. Question: your all-time favorite movie might be just about to get better. I have a question for you, Ross. The character of Narcisse, I know, was different from the book. You brought a real badass kind of attitude, to it that wasn't in there. I think you did really improve this book. I was wondering what might have been the inspiration.
We can't speak for him because he's not here. But I understand what you're saying. I think
The question was the inspiration for the elaboration of Narcisse compared to the book.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that he's a much more important character in the narrative of what you're seeing, and the journey that he goes on is important too, because he's clearly on a different trajectory to Boom, to Cabal. So he's always going to Midian, isn't he? And he belongs there. He's journeys there, and I think it's important that we see that and understand him. So, I mean, films are about the story and about the character and about empathising and understanding, and I think that this cut does that to all the characters. I think that all their stories become much more elaborate, don't they? You know, you know Nightbreed, you've watched it. It's a much more elaborate, you know, story now. Yeah. Okay, next question. Go back.
That's Fangoria from 20 odd years ago, and it has a Nightbreed cover, but there is something on the cover that I have no clue who it is or what it is, so I was hoping maybe you guys could elaborate on what Nightbreed thing is.
I used to try and steal Fangoria when I was a teenager from our local newsagent.
Hi, Dad.
Well, it's one of the missing breed, I think. I don't know whether you know what happened to him in the end, but
yeah, sure. Yeah, well, there are patches. I remember this character. There are patches in there where it's perhaps murky because of the VHS work print, and there are very many breed lurking around there. And what actually happened is, we got if anyone sees the Empire article that just came out, there's breed in there that you've never seen before. And basically what happened is, each day they brought in extras, and the guys in the makeup workshop basically they just had wacky ideas, and they made people up as breed. And they completely created whatever they fancied doing. So each day they created a new Nightbreed character. Clive might draw it, something happened, they'd go in there, they'd spend the weekend.
But I find it like crazy that it got a cover.
Yeah.
And it's not even
He is in the movie.
Yeah, in the book.
Okay.
No, he is in the movie. He's in the scene where Boone's getting baptised and he's standing in the background.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In the murky depths of this, there's so many Nightbreed. Yeah. And so many characters that are yet to come out. And I think that the beauty here, I know what we've watched today, but the beauty is in seeing a pristine version of this, where you can actually see them. You know, I think that that's where we'll start to understand that they are actually there, and as Christian said, they're lurking in the background. But yeah, it's interesting that he made the cover of Fangoria. But that's a photo editor's choice, I think. Yeah.
But also, I think it was the height of the technology at the time, because you got the prosthetic face, but also all the arms were animatronics, and the eyes were animatronics. So at the time, it was state-of-the-art character. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon.
First of all, everyone should read that issue of Empire magazine from November. There you are. But yeah, actually my question was the difference between the Charlotte version and this one. Was there more of the DVD version put into this?
No. There's a simple answer to that. But what actually, the Charlotte version of it, I basically set about putting everything in it. And the feedback that we got from you, the viewer, was that there was a little bit too much of the hillbillies. You know, when they load the guns and they're going to go and kill and they're in the car park and they're being all macho. Well, it doesn't really further the story. So you've got to make these decisions as you watch it, and especially as you watch it with an audience. I think that's when you come to the table tomorrow or when you see us after this, I'm and Mark are particularly interested in what you have to say, what you say now. You can say, no, I prefer Nightbreed. That's completely up to you. But as long as you're giving us feedback, which can enhance the story, I think that's really important. I still think the film, when it's released, it's still a little bit long at the moment, and I often think about what we could do to it. And Clive's notes are always quite precise on that. In the Charlotte version, when Craig's in the garage and somebody goes boom, 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 it's actually 3 booms, and then Clive said, take one of the booms out, move this to here, do this, and then that starts to help the film. So I think all the time, I think editing is just helping the story, but I'm really keen that you see as many of the Nightbreed and understand, your relationship with Babette and all of those things. That's what's important to me.
And this is also actually just in agreement with what you're saying. This is what has made the Occupy Midian movement and these screenings, it's such an empowering thing. This really is a community effort. You know, we've been looking at this for a long time. We've been involved with this for a long time. Any creative person will tell you the absolute value of fresh eyes. And you are fresh eyes. You're looking at this for the first time. Russell's been
That's what I call meat for the beast.
But it's really true. So it's a really great thing. If you have a feeling going one way or another, and you feel strongly about it, you should share it, because this is all of our creation. This is all of our movements.
I know, I've seen hands up, but somebody at the back has their hand up, and yeah, over there, yeah.
Okay, some of the new footage, I noticed the score music sounded really crisp. Extra music from Danhauser contribute more or that?
No, I think this is where the score just came from the CD that you can buy, right? And the guy that isn't sat here today that we owe a lot of credit to is a guy called Jimmy Johnson that edited it with me, and I think that he was incredibly, precise on using the music, and I think the music works incredibly well. And did anybody notice that we use the score 2 or 3 times within the movie? We use it in different places, we cut it up a bit, we just try to use it intelligently. Because music really, score is to be laid on the movie. You put a score down, the score doesn't dictate the edit, it usually comes in at a different point in time, and that, we took that approach to this. We wanted to use it, and let's face facts, I could have gone and taken Edward Scissorhands score and put this on there, because Danny Elfman scores are kind of similar, so he kind of does 3 scores and then moves into a different motif. They're just evolving. But I really only used a Nightbreed. I didn't use anything.
Yeah, the Desperate Housewives motif just didn't fit.
The king of comedy, eh? Okay, who's next? Who else got a burning question? Gentlemen.
Chris Young would probably have done it for free for you, as he always wanted to.
Yeah, you over there with the hat on?
What was the decision to take the ending with Decker kind of coming back to life for one last scare out?
It wasn't a decision. That's not how the novel ends.
Yeah.
So
Decker Living was a studio mandated reshoot.
Okay. Yeah. And looking at it, like my goal as a person that admires Clive Barker's writing and admires his films and the work that everybody did here, is that I wanted to give you the capability of being able to watch and see how Clive wanted it to be. So he wanted to take that film in a different direction. He wanted a different person to be the bad guy. And if
I noticed that Ashbury still had his setup.
Yeah.
And at the end of the studio version, they had him worshipping Decker.
Yeah. And I just think the version that exists, Nightbreed, is a flawed movie because it doesn't further the story all the time. Whereas this version actually gives you a story and it gives you something to go by. Yeah, but even in a cinematic sense or in a comic book sense, nobody's actually dead, are they? They can be brought back to life, can't they? So if in the second Nightbreed, Clive wanted to bring him back to life, he would have brought him back to life. And it's better than leaving it with such an obvious ending, which I think that doesn't do Nightbreed any favours, really. Personally. Gentlemen.
That's my question. If you're going to be a sequel, because I love Nightbreed, that would be awesome.
Well,
anything's possible.
Don't care, I'm dead.
Doug, tell us about the quote from your T-shirt that you got down next to your stand. What does it say?
It's not about sequels.
Oh,
not about sequels. Nothing. I borrowed Pinhead's line. No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering. I have a T-shirt that says, "No remakes, please. It's a waste of good celluloid." Sequel, fuck it, I'll come back.
But I can tell you that I root around too, and me and Mark found Clive's premise to continue it. And he has written quite a detailed premise of what would happen next.
Can I ask specifically, because I always wondered about this, Clive typically originally intended to write a trilogy of Cabal novels.
Yeah.
And so there was going to be Cabal, Nightbreed, Cabal 2, Nightbreed 2, Cabal 3, Nightbreed 3. Anyone who has followed Clive closely over the years will know that that's not a surprise. Everything is always the first of 97. And by the time he's done 2 1/4, he's thought of something else. Time and money won't allow, whatever. Did he specifically have the second and third Cabal novels plotted and noted in his head?
It's more, what I've read is more a continuation of the characters and their journey and about time and about where they could go. And it's really funny because without giving too much away, the thing that struck me was when Clive compared the Nightbreed to the X-Men, which I thought was really interesting, because we all know Clive loves comic books, and we all love Marvel comic books from the 60s, and he was talking, in what would happen is that they kind of live in this X-Men kind of thing where they're a part of society and other things happen, and I think that that's an interesting place to take the Nightbreed to. I have, in my head, a Nightbreed story too, because I've worked with this material so much that, I can't help thinking about what happens to the next. So I think that their journey's not over. It might continue in comic books, it might continue in novels, it might be in short stories, or it might be another movie, or it could be a TV series. So basically, at this point in time, we don't know. But
so he never specifically had the second Cabal novel noted or planned in his head.
No, it's more like a treatment, a premise of where it could go next.
He told me I was going to come back as my twin sister. I was going to have prosthetic tits. I was quite looking forward to it.
I thought you already had
those.
Well, you know.
Yeah, little pics. He actually showed me what they were very close. I was young then.
Simon, in a really early draft of the script, you're female. Your character.
Yeah, no, in my script, I'm female.
Yeah. It's funny.
I don't know what I was saying, really.
Gentleman over there, question.
Coming out here and watching all this, and I can tell that it's really been a big labor of love for a lot of you guys to do this. And I kind of it's my first time seeing all this, to kind of get a quick introduction as far as what brought y'all back to the movie. I mean, I know y'all kind of reintroduced this story of how this came about, but I know that I haven't had anybody up here before sitting like years other than the movie. So,
well, we found the footage. I don't know if you were here for the intro. Okay, well, we found the footage in Clive's studio. Russell took it upon himself to edit it together, and then he came back to the office and presented me with the Cabal cut, and I was incredibly excited. And I went home that night and I watched the whole thing, which, I mean, as Russell said, it has been a sort of living, breathing entity of its own. It was damn near 3 hours long at that point. And we watched it and made notes and gave it to Clive, and he gave notes, and somehow, I'm not sure how it came about, but we were fortunate enough to get Mad Monster Party to. They remembered that there had been a screening in Indiana a couple of years ago, and they wanted to know if they could get that. And when we agreed to it, we surprised them with this, and they snagged Craig and Ann, and I mean that screening was just magic. It was ridiculous. It was, and it started this whole snowball, which led to the Empire magazine, and Midian, coined by Ann, of course, and it's just been, it's been a fantastic process. But really, it started with Russell. It started with finding the footage, Russell editing it together, and then the four of us just bonded over it, and it's really been magical.
It's a fantastic experience to know that something that you did, a labour of love, actually finds its audience. And I think that's the most rewarding thing for me. And the friendships that come out of it are fantastic too, and the things that you have to say about the movie is great. Anybody else want to add anything to that?
I would just like to add that for me, I have been answering questions at conventions about Nightbreed since 1991. And I've been answering 2 questions at just about every Q&A I've done. Will there be a director's cut of Nightbreed, and will there be a sequel to Nightbreed? And I've always said, sequel, I don't know. The Cabal 2, Nightbreed 2, probably not. And the director's cut, I always said, because I knew that Dickie had turned in a director's cut in LA, and then when Fox started dickying around, he basically said, fuck you, and went home. So I always said, unless somebody in the cellars at Fox or Morgan Creek trips over a canister marked Nightbreed the director's cut, you're probably not going to see it. And as time went on, I was saying, I think the thing is, even if there's extra footage around, I doubt whether Clive could even remember how he was originally going to edit the film, and how do you edit it to a pre-existing score, and so on. And I've been railing against what Fox did to the movie, including revoicing me with a German accent. Thank you, Russell, for giving me my voice back. So it's extraordinary to me. Obviously, as time has gone on, I've increasingly kind of said, I don't think this director's cut is ever going to happen. So it's extraordinary in the last couple of years to suddenly find, it looks like it's about to happen. Yeah. Thanks to these guys.
But more than that. Once you created this cut, the movement that went then online, thanks to Anne with the Occupy Midian, has also given it enormous forward momentum.
Yeah, people like Ryan sat down there and Chris have helped. Yeah. People have helped amongst the community. You had a question over there?
Yeah. Do you have any details you can throw in about that scene? When they're taking Baphomet apart.
Yeah. Baphomet is going to be spread amongst the tribes of the moon, so when they leave Midian, certain characters are responsible for taking Baphomet and keeping him safe so Cabal can remake Midian. And it's become Cabal's responsibility to remake it because he's seen as a catalyst to the destruction. So, and that's part of his journey. I mean, that's why I think, 20 years later, maybe there's a new Midian. I keep thinking that. I keep thinking that all the time. So those bits, that's the way I see a future for Nightbreed and Cabal, is that those parts have got to come back together and Midian's got to be recreated.
Yeah, that's the whole setup at the end of the barn for the girls saying, we'll get back together soon.
I think I commented to you, Russell, when you gave me the Cabal cut. That there seemed to be precious little footage of Baphomet. Is there more, or was there just never very much?
There's a little bit more Baphomet. It needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, we found the second word. A lot more Baphomet footage.
Yeah. So our intention is to work on it. I mean, right now
that was stuck. Baphomet was just
yeah, but unfortunately, as you pointed out, that is really the roughest bit of footage.
Yeah, and that's where I'm putting all my attentions at the moment, is to costing either a high quality, expensive use of the video, or whether it will turn up. I mean, this feels a bit like Indiana Jones and that warehouse looking for that one thing, and the one thing I want is the film footage. I've got the original director of photography, Robin Midian, on board to come and help grade it. Everybody wants to do this and have this film come back to life. So it's fantastic. But
and you know, actually, just quick as an aside to this, it would be a really great thing if all of you got on.
I think I commented to you, Russell, when you gave me the Cabal coverage. That there seemed to be precious little footage of Baphomet. Is there more, or was there just never very much?
There's a little bit more Baphomet. It needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, we found the second work. A lot more Baphomet footage.
Yeah. So our intention is to work on it. I mean, right now
that was stuff. Baphomet was just
yeah, but unfortunately, as you pointed out, that is really the roughest bit of footage.
Yeah, and that's where I'm putting all my attention at the moment, is to costing either a high quality, expensive use of the video, or whether it will turn up. I mean, this feels a bit like Indiana Jones and that warehouse looking for that one thing, and the one thing I want is the film footage. I've got the original director of photography, Robin Midian, on board to come and help grade it. Everybody wants to do this and have this film come back to life. So it's fantastic. But
and you know, actually, just quick as an aside to this, it would be a really great thing if all of you got on the Occupy Midian website tonight and just sent a letter to Morgan Craig and just say, I saw this and I love this and I endorse this completely and I will buy this. Really let them know, because that's how we're going to get some momentum, and how they're going to be more willing to give Russell the tools he needs to make this available to you. So really, you got a job to do if you want it.
Well, as Craig put it in North Carolina, don't appeal to their sensitive side. It's
about money.
Just say you'll buy the DVD. Simple as that.
Just say we saw it, we love it. When can we see more?
We've got a form letter too.
We have a form letter. We have a form letter. Go for it. But add your thoughts, really, because they are collaborators in this.
Go forth and breathe.
Anyway, lady over there, desperate to ask.
I just wanted to make a comment because you and Mark both asked for feedback on the screening, and it as well being my favorite movie of all time and everything. I have to say that the one part that I really missed out of the new screening is when the priest when Cronenberg is up on the cross almost, and he's all hallelujah, hallelujah. I have to agree with the gentleman in the back, like I missed that part being in there, like crazy.
But what's going to happen here is when it gets released, you'll get both versions of Blu-ray. Yeah. Right? So
no, I want both versions, absolutely. I'm just saying that I think that's like
sure, but it's not. What the point is not Cabal, and it isn't in Clive's original script. And as Mark suggested, it's a studio reshoot that was enforced on the film because the studio execs saw sequel, Cronenberg, that character, etc., etc. And I mean, bottom line for me, my journey with this and my love affair with it is based on Clive and what he was intending to do. And I've said this before, both Clive, me, and lots of people sat at this table love the work of people like Fellini and John Cocteau, and it has more to do with those people than it has to do with Halloween.
But I think your love of that scene is a testament to Clive's talents, because anyone that has heard any story about studio rewrites and suggestions, they're ludicrous sometimes. I mean, they really get ridiculous. And just the fact that Clive could take what they were trying to do and make the magic that he did make out of it is incredible. So, I mean, even though that was the studio imposing on Clive, it's still, they are still Clive's words, they are still Clive's ideas, and it's what he shot. So, it's all cool stuff. It's all brilliant.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I know Cronenberg name's come up a couple of times already, but does anyone know if he's had a chance to review this?
No, I'm basically, that's the thing that I'm doing at the moment. I've got his assistant's email address, and I'm going to find a way of either inviting him to watch it or getting him to see it, right? Because he was passionate about the film and caring about it. But as we all know, David now doesn't see himself as a horror film maker. So obviously the thing is, he's the only person in the equation that isn't involved. Everybody's involved.
But Clive didn't see Nightbreed as a horror film.
No, it's not a horror film. They're all sweet. I know, but so Cronenberg is part of where we want to go and the film's future, and one of the big things we're working on is we like and we think we're going to make a 90-minute documentary to go with, and it would explain both cuts and the reason, and everybody up here would speak, all the special effects guys would speak, and you'd learn the history of this movie. So you'd have all these questions answered by a 90-minute documentary to go with the package.
Have people like Bob Keane seen it?
Yeah. Bob's not seen it yet. Everybody's excited about it. Yeah, he wants to see it. Yeah. But all the image animation guys are coming to Friday Fest on Friday. Oh, we met one of them. Yeah. I can't remember his name, but he came along. But Jeff Porter is coming to London
to Pride Fest.
Yeah, he's going to see it on Friday. Yeah, so next Friday. So.
Yeah, I mean, the tales those guys will have to tell you, you wouldn't believe. I mean, the utter mayhem that was the special effects makeup area on some days had to be seen to be believed. I mean, how many makeups were being run through? I mean, it was just off the charts, absolutely insane.
It's kind of like a mix and match to some waters as well. You see the hand going out the face of one day and then.
That's the crazy thing. Someone had asked before what we loved, what made this a labor of love. I mean, for me, it was. I didn't know it at the time. I knew at the time that I was very, very fortunate to be working with great people that I loved Clive. But what I didn't understand was that film was such a perfect blend of film and theater. It was like being backstage at an opera or some sort of Madame Tussauds kind of setup, and then all of a sudden we're on a film set. It was theater and film perfectly balanced, and I just thought that was wild. I didn't realize that it was one of a kind. That was really, really good.
All right, anybody else? Over there.
Absolutely, we've made very good. We've had a lot of positive feedback from Morgan Creek. That's why we're here tonight. They've given us carte blanche to screen the film wherever we want. They've given us carte blanche to also, restore the film to try and bring it back to its luster. If we can raise the funds, we can even try and fund the film. But really, it's just a matter of finding the money to get a proper mix and a proper restoration, and just enough fan fervor to prove that if we sink that money into it, then we're going to get it back.
But ultimately, the film belongs to them, and we can't argue with that.
Yeah.
So we don't want.
They've been very gracious.
Yeah, we don't have a war with Morgan Creek, and in a sense, now 21 years later, they thought this movie was a dead lame duck, and now they've actually seen through audiences, feedback. And a magazine like Empire doing a 7-page feature on it, and there are cover stories coming up on magazines, and they can't escape that, and that's why we don't want you to go on there and say Morgan Creek, blah blah blah. We want you to go there and say, we would buy this, where can I buy it from? Because the more people that say, where can I buy the Cabal cut from, where can I see it, that's when they're going to listen, because numbers start to add up in their heads. And it's all about economics, really, because they're in this to make money.
Which is again why it's really important to just get your voice out there and say, I was here to see this and I loved it. So it's really good for them to hear. They're not our enemies, as we said. If we let them know that if they build it, you will come.
Okay. Anybody else? Simon, what would you like to ask?
Can we go to the party now?
So you can't, but your twin sister can.
I'll go and put the tits on.
So everybody, come and say hello to us over the weekend. Like, tell us what you thought. You know, everybody's here down in the signing room. You know, we want to meet you guys and talk to you. But right now, we'd like to go and have a drink. Is that cool?
Yeah, those were a couple of great videos, Christian. Thank you.
Not a problem. Although my hand was shaking like hell.
And the sound is pretty good too. Usually, sometimes when someone posts a video that they recorded of one of these conventions or something, usually you can see them like on the side of the image, and then you can hardly make out what they're saying. But this one is actually pretty clear, so that's wonderful.
I think it's because I did it with a camera and not a phone, which most people seem to do with the phone.
Yeah.
So it's the microphone on it. So I was doing it with a little camera. But
yeah,
came out quite nice.
I think you know that overall the questions were actually not too bad. Except for there was one really long, painful question from somebody addressing Nick Vince as if he were Hugh Ross.
Oh, no.
Hugh got a big kick out of that. I told it him at Fright Fest. He thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
We haven't included those, but we had our share of awkward moments interviewing some people on the Clive Barker podcast, which will remain forever unmentioned. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean it's easy to do, and particularly in a movie where you're talking about two different monster characters. There's no reason to assume that everyone knows them by face as well as we do. Just having been in Occupy Midian and stuff. But yeah, and also Hugh Ross was scheduled to be there at Monster Mania, and he had to cancel because of a filming.
Yeah. And so did Andrew Robinson. Did he have a family?
Yeah, he was supposed to be there also.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one was kind of a bummer. And Hugh Ross too, but Andrew Robinson, that would have almost been the entire Hellraiser cast.
I think I was quite disappointed at the Hellraiser panel that Ashley Lawrence wasn't there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, she just decided not to go to the panel, I think, because of the flash photography issue that she has.
Well, it's a migraine, so she decided not to do.
Yeah, because she had that welding accident once, and I think some spark flew into her eyes or something, and I think after that she always has this problem where she can't really, have any flash photography near her or something. So, so she was there signing.
I didn't notice any during the panel, which is the ironic thing about it.
Right. So she was there to sign photos, but she wasn't at the panel.
Yeah, she was just signing for the weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the end of the panel, when everybody, got up and were sort of, posing for together as in a group photo, there was a lot of flash photography then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So in the... Let's see. So here are some fan reactions to the Cabal cut. From some people that are seeing it for the first time. The first one is Sicko. She likes as she likes to be called, and her production company is Sicko Films. I talked to her a little bit in the hallway right after I borrowed some batteries for my recorder. So, what do you think about the difference between Nightbreed and the Cabal cut?
I love them both equally.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and one thing they talked about was the reshoots and how they didn't want to include some of the reshoots that didn't follow the story the way he originally meant it. So,
right.
And you were kind of disappointed about not having the Decker scene at the end, right?
Yeah, because I think that Clive has a lot of almost blasphemy and sort of religious figures and sort of icon type of imagery in his work and everything, and I really like the epitome of the ending where he's stretched out up on a cross almost type thing, and the priest is going hallelujah and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I kind of thought it was a neat add-in, but
Yeah, it's really well shot and well directed. It's a really cool looking scene. And I think it's also really interesting that, you know, this priest is willing to dump everything that he believes as soon as he sees something a little different.
I noticed there was a lot more conversation when Laurie went to go and find Boone and was speaking with Babette and her mom and stuff, and it seemed like that there was conversation in there, and that it was a link.
Yeah, that whole psychic link between Laurie and Babette
Right.
wasn't in the movie before.
That's
And Laurie really in the other Nightbreed mostly was just chasing Boone around. That's the way it seemed to me. Where now she has a lot more. She's a lot more of a kind of the hero of the movie in a way.
I'm also not sure how I felt about them altering the scene where Simon Bamford's character went into dust and everything.
Yeah.
Because I really liked I could really feel empathy for the character before the way it was shot, and now it drags it out just a little bit, and like it like seems to focus a little more on the cops and them being asses to him versus the explosion of him and like him trembling and stuff. And I feel like there was maybe a few more seconds of him turning into the dust and trembling and stuff in the original.
Yeah, that's true. It's tricky, and I think they you know, there's two ways they could have edited the movie, right? They could have done it where they splice in frame by frame which things they can use from the DVD and which ones they can, and they opted to do an entire, you know, if there was a scene that was a little bit longer in the VHS, they would
did a whole recut.
They would do the entire scene in the VHS instead of splicing in as much as they could from the DVD.
Right.
So it's two different styles of editing. And Russell thought it would look too jarring to do it the other way, where you use as much as you possibly can from the DVD.
Yeah, it definitely needs to be cleaned up, but I was really excited to see it, and I had goosebumps over 10 times during the showing and stuff. I mean, I have them right now. You can see them on my arm.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible, but it's also I would like to see it in a theater.
In a theater and in high quality and stuff, where they've restored it fully.
Yeah, and they may never find the footage at Morgan Creek, but they could burn what he called the process of burning the VHS, and so then they can only play it once, but then it's the highest quality possible. Have you seen like the Alien 3?
No.
So they did that on the work print version of Alien 3. I think there was something else that he mentioned that they did that with, but it looks really good in almost DVD quality. Yeah.
But Nightbreed itself, I think, just means so much to many of the hardcore fans and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Clive Barker has an amazing amount of true followers and lovers of his work and everything. You know, he's such an amazing dreamer, an Imagineer. You know, if you'll say. And
nobody's like him.
And that movie really brings his imagination to life. It like puts you in Midian and being very into special effects and stuff like that. You know, maybe the blood was lacking a little bit out of it, but look, my God, look at those beautiful monsters and how many of them and stuff and the work. I mean, he's an artist as well, and just the art that went into creating those characters and stuff. It's just amazing.
Yeah, really cool. There were a few little differences that I noticed between this one and the one at Charlotte.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They added some stuff.
Cut things out, actually. Yeah, there was when I remember when Anne was going through Midian. Laurie was going through Midian for the first time.
Right.
And there was this Nightbreed that was all in white, and she was crossing a bridge, and he was like doing flips through the air. In the background, and you could hardly tell who he was or what he looked like. But
who was it? Cabal?
No. It was this Nightbreed guy that was all white, and he would just kind of fly through the air, you know, flipping in the background, like he was on trampolines.
Right. I think I know which character that is.
Yeah, and I know which one you mean.
with that white face, right?
Yeah, and Jose asked me if that was him, and it's like, well, it was too hard to tell. Yeah, that guy. And it was too hard to tell. But I think so.
Paciola,
the pale.
I was looking to see if it said something about him being an acrobatic or something. It doesn't.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could... I mean, and you see him, I think, in close-up other times in the movie. But I don't really know if that was him, in the background.
I love being able to have the Nightbreed Chronicle book that it tells about each character, you know what I mean, in depth.
And I think Clive wrote all those backstories after the movie was already made.
I really like this Yili cat.
Yeah, that one is awesome. Oh, and Christian from Occupy Midian has one of these two.
Wow, that's really neat.
Those little larva guys.
That's really, really neat.
He was going to bring it here, but he said it's too fragile.
It's probably deteriorating because of the age of the latex and
exactly.
stuff. Yeah.
And it's meant to be a puppet, like you can reach your hand in and move the mouth and stuff, but it's too hard now that he couldn't do that.
That's beautiful. Him and Jose really lucked out.
Yeah.
Like I would really love that key to Midian.
I know.
We all need to go there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. This next one is a fan, Doug, who is also on our Occupy Midian page. Okay. All right.
But like I said, after watching it for the past 22 years, it's just weird to wrap my brain around like all those new scenes. Some of them fit really well. Some of them just, I see why they were cut.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like what?
12:45.
The whole beginning scene where they're making out. When he comes out from underneath the vehicle.
When he was welding.
Yeah, when he was welding. Some parts kind of took away from the already. What's the word I'm looking for? The belief, like when Decker dropped the mask and it landed on top of Laurie.
Yeah.
How'd he get the mask back if he ran away? You just took it for granted.
Maybe he had more than one.
Maybe. But if the mask talked to him...
that's a good point.
And when Boone is tripping, and he goes home in the whole fire scene, he walks into his house and he spills his pills. How does he have his pills back when he's at the doctor's?
Yeah, because the doctor, he hands them to the doctor.
Yeah. But for the most part, 90% of that whole last scene, the battle scene, was mint.
Yeah, it was great.
Especially involving more of the priest.
Yeah.
But the theatrical ending when he brings Decker back to life. It was more for shock value, but I enjoyed that ending more than just the priest just solemnly talking. They burned me,
Yeah. So what's your name?
Doug.
I'm Ryan. I do the Occupy Midian Facebook group.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for talking to us.
No problem. Overall, it was pretty sweet.
All right. And here's one from Susan Schofield, who, and this was a conversation with Russell Charrington. I'm recording you for the podcast.
Oh, I am loving how much character development there is in your version of this movie.
I care about story and character.
Right, that's what draws me in. I want to relate to the characters, I want to be attached to the characters, and your film does that. The studio version does not do that. As much as I love the studio version, with the creativity and the originality of it, it doesn't have that character development that yours does.
I think especially for Ann Bobby, right?
Ann Bobby, yes.
Oh, she's developed way out of that.
Yep. It's great, and I loved hearing her on the panel afterwards.
Yeah.
And she said the thing about the animal rescue. I do animal rescue also.
Oh, that's awesome.
In that scene, I was like, oh my God, it's totally animal rescue right now going on. And then she said that in the panel, I was like, that totally makes sense. I see it. I loved it.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad how somebody just said, oh, cut all this crap out. We don't need that.
That's ridiculous. But I agree with you on the part about the guns and the rednecks. Yeah. But there are levels of this movie that I never caught on to before. And now, just knowing Clive, I've been following Clive for 20 years. Seeing your cut of it, I can totally see his voice in that.
It's just like it's my cut and Clive's cut, because I understand his work like nobody else. Yes. Because I worked with him for 25 years, and I work with him every day. Me and Clive, and for him to give me co-directing credit.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, but it's how much we believe in each other.
Right.
I mean, he's my friend. If we had never had another person loving his work, I'd still be there. And that's why I'm there now. I love it more than anything. And I made that film. And the best kick in the world for me is 1,300 people buying tickets to go and watch it.
That is fantastic. I wish we had that here for you.
I know, but it doesn't matter, because I come wherever people want to screen it. And I give my life to it. I give up my time. You know that, Ryan. And I care so much. But like meeting people like you is wonderful. And meeting people like Ryan and Christian and other people and Mark and everything. It's just wonderful, because you know that you're giving something life and meaning. And I was at university. I wrote my dissertation on Clive Barker's work.
Okay, well, and our next thing is this second meal with Ann Bobby, and Christian, you went to that, right?
Yes, I did.
And I don't know for sure, because I still haven't heard anything. Sicko was going to be recording that, and I haven't heard anything back from her about whether she's got that footage or not. So this may or may not appear on this podcast. Or if it's too long, maybe I'll just put it in a different, in a different recording. But what did you think of that?
I thought it was possibly it was the highlight of the weekend for me, even more so than the Cabal cut, which is strange, seeing as it's the Cabal cut's now my favourite film. Because I was going to film it, but a couple of minutes in, I turned my camera off because I felt the whole event itself. It wasn't just I expected to go there and her to just be sitting there going, "Oh, and I met this person, they said this, blah blah blah," but it was a lot more personal of Anne's journey as an actress and what led her to the point of getting the audition for Nightbreed. Then all through that, her travels to England, everything that happens. And I felt it was too personal for me. I felt odd filming it. And as Brandy was filming it, I put my camera down. But it was so interesting. I mean, she has this folder. It's huge. It's looks about sort of 700 pages, A4 pages.
Yeah, she let me look through that.
It's astounding, the amount of detail. It's every single call list, every single... she's written down times of pickups, who she was with, what happened the day of the whole thing, and including the reshoots as well. And it was... Anne's such a lovely person, and it was quite an honour to be able to hear the full story of her going through her journey through Nightbreed, and sort of what's happened since, and how much she's in awe of what's happening now.
Yeah.
That was it. I said it's a good end to the weekend.
All right. I was going to say, actually, it was pretty awesome to see her announce that on the Occupy Midian group page that, she was like, hey, I found this, and, this is probably the most complete record of, we have about this. And then, of course, Phil Stokes from Revelations, because Revelations is doing that book on the production process of Nightbreed, he immediately popped up on the group, and it was like, hey, Ann, well, we'd love to take a look at that and maybe include that for our, project. And she's like, all right, yeah, sure. So, that is going to be put to good use, I'm sure, and that's wonderful news.
Yeah, and it takes a lot to get Phil Stokes to, stick his head out on Occupy Midian.
Yeah.
And it was quite good. And also brought out, she gave everyone at the beginning of the evening a little photo of her and Clive during the nightclub scene, and she signed it. And on the back, she wrote a secret of the filming. Example is, I once saved Clive Barker's soul, possibly. And then if we wanted to actually ask the question of what it was, or we could ask her personally if we wanted to keep it as a secret for ourselves, and she wouldn't say it again, or we could ask him, and then we would all keep it secrets. Wow. So I'm not going to tell you what was said, because it was that you had to be there.
Okay.
It was so inclusive of everyone there, and it wasn't just like a Q&A, which can be impersonal. You ask a question and they sort of run through the same old answer. it was very personal to everyone. Like, everyone was included. It wasn't just her talking; she was getting everyone else's stories. So it was kind of a fan's wet dream of being able to do that.
Yeah, it was wonderful to have her on the podcast. She is an amazing conversationalist. So she starts talking about things, and you just want to sit down and listen to it and never stop.
Yeah, we kind of forget. I found myself forgetting that we were doing a podcast, and that we actually sort of had a timeline and an outline of things we were going to talk about. It was she's really really personal and really personable.
And she did that. Just before she had to catch a train. She almost missed the train, too.
Yeah.
She had to run off. That was quite funny. But I've got to say about the Nightbreed, I mean, I've been to sort of conventions and things before, but the Nightbreed and Hellraiser crew are possibly the nicest people I've met, like, celebrity-wise, like, the most genuine.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's something to do with Clive. Like, he only gets people who could be like that. I mean, all of them. Simon Bamford, all that, they were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and Christian, you and I stayed up late one night with Naomi talking to Barbie Wilde about all kinds of stuff, serial killers and books, and it was really interesting.
We'd love to get Barbie Wilde. We'd love to get Barbie Wilde on the podcast too.
She told me she could probably do it in November, right? Isn't that what she said?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
I mean, the good thing, I really kind of want to go to the Weekend of Horrors in Germany, because it's that whole load again, but Hugh Ross is going to be there, and it'll be sort of more of a complete reunion.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I can't afford it's not going to happen.
We don't know, though, if Anne and Craig would be there.
No. Hopefully, I mean, there's two slots on the website with question marks next to Hugh.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm imagining they're trying for it.
Yeah. It's it's tough to get them, to get American people to go over to Europe.
And Anne is very busy writing a play at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and she put off some working to go to this, Monster Mania.
Hey, I'm really curious about, we promised we would keep tabs on that on the podcast. And what about Nicholas Vince's new book, What Monsters Do?
You can download it from Amazon right now. I did, and I downloaded it on the Kindle version, and I read the first story on the plane on the way down.
What was your opinion?
It was good. It was good. It was a little, it was a story about werewolves. It was good, but a little sad. It had kind of the same tone and the same writing style as like Luxie or that story that he did for Hellbound Hearts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely his same style. But it was good.
Also, there's another story that's also on Amazon that I would like to recommend to people that they can download, which is the Beast and Beauty from Nicholas Vince. It's also available for the Kindle on Amazon. So maybe we can add
okay. And it's
the story he wrote years ago. This was based on a painting by John Bolton, and Nicholas Vince did a story to go with it. And this was published for the first time in a Skeleton Crew magazine, I think, August 1990. And now it's been, he made his own, I think there's a website that you can self-publish. He actually said he was going to try to get some copies of that as well for his table. So I don't know if that was also on the table there.
No,
but
it wasn't.
he published that little story a few weeks ago before he came out with the What Monsters Do book. So yeah, just check it out.
Okay. Well, cool.
It's like 90. So it's like 90. I'm sorry. It's just like 99 cents on Amazon or something. So
it's by itself. It's not part of a compilation then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look for that. The Hellraiser panel was not as... I mean, all those people are great, and the panel people did a great job answering questions, but the questions were not as thoughtful to me as the Nightbreed panel.
Well, that's because we've been here since the beginning, and we're huge fans, and a lot of people don't really know as much as we do. So
yeah.
I wonder sometimes that they have these form replies for some questions because probably, so many fans ask them so many times. They just, come up with these form replies, I guess.
Yeah.
It's,
some people didn't know Barbie was not in Hellraiser 1.
Yeah.
They have questions about, Pinhead being the only Cenobite that talked when Barbie did in number 2. It's things like that where it was a lot of, the panel were having to correct them.
Oh, and one guy said, I want to hear from each of you what it's like to work with Clive Barker, and Barbie, didn't.
Right, exactly, yeah. That was Tony Randall, the director, yeah.
Yeah, and the last question, I couldn't believe this, but this guy with a bow tie got up and was like, so we all love Hellraiser. Can you tell us when there's going to be? How come they're not making more Hellraiser movies?
Oh, really?
Everyone died inside when that was asked. It was like, oh no, oh.
Yeah,
fantastic. Do you think he was being sarcastic?
No, not at all.
He's actually genuinely thinking. Obviously he's a fan of the whole series. Which kind of begs in mind, like, oh God, does that mean he liked Revelations?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that he believed that the Hellraiser movie sequels aren't getting churned out fast enough.
Well, maybe if the TV series that's been mentioned actually gets done, maybe he'll be happy, and you'll get more episodes coming out every week at 9 p.m. Central or something.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping it's not a Tales from the Crypt thing where you have like Doug as Pinhead as the Crypt Keeper kind of thing going this week.
Well, I don't know. I think that might be funny. I don't know. It's like, tonight, Pinhead gets a new roommate. Something like that.
I would pay to see that if it was just an hour a week of Pinhead at home making tea.
Yeah.
And,
funny.
Giving Doug some kind of like catchphrase like, I don't know. Well, the obvious one would be, we'll tear your soul apart. But he'd be saying that to the milkman, to the postman, or something like that.
Yeah.
What do you mean, my rent is, coming, being, more expensive. I'll tear your soul apart.
Oh my God! And Will, what was it? Will, like he could end each, or he could, lead into each story like, "We'll have a hell of a time."
Oh God! Yeah, you guys remember the Nightmare on Elm Street TV show?
Yeah.
Freddy's Nightmares. Yeah.
But I think they should have Pinhead as a tour guide, so he can open up everything of. We have such things to show you.
Oh.
Hell right, brilliant.
That reminds me. Okay, so I just this is kind of related, but I just watched the Ghost Rider sequel. And,
you watched it?
Yeah. Oh my God! And then after it was over, I started watching the deleted scenes, and there's one really long deleted scene of the devil trying to rent a car. and he's fighting with the kid at the counter who really just wanted to close everything and go home. And the devil is getting really mad because, if anyone knows contracts, it's him. And you promised me $38 a day, but when I look on here, the daily rate says $68 a day. And he's like, oh, that's just a typo. I'll just scratch that out. And he's like, no, I want an all new contract. And it goes on and on and on. And it's like, oh my God, So speaking of like a devil in like an everyday kind of a situation. There's no place for that in the movie. As far as I could see, why did the devil need to rent a car? It seems like somebody that idea struck them as funny, so they crammed that in there.
If you've ever seen Crank, their other film, then they really don't care as long as it's funny.
Oh, yeah. I saw the two films, so... Have you seen Crank, Ryan? It doesn't seem like the kind of movie. Yeah.
Is that the Jason Statham one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where he has to keep jump-starting his heart, or...
Jesus, the second one, after he falls from the plane and, hits the ground, there are these guys that come over and scrape him off the floor with a shovel, put him in a car, When I started watching the second movie, I was like, well, this is going to be fun. So they just scrape them off with a big shovel, like a snow shovel, just stick them in there, and they were like body part, they traded body parts or something, so they give his heart to someone else. It's just a hilarious movie. It doesn't really make any sense at all.
No.
It's just hey, if it works, put it in.
And Nicolas Cage in this Ghost Rider movie was so over the top, twitchy, and his.
Have you ever seen a Nicolas Cage film where he isn't over the top?
No, but this was like to the 100th power.
Yeah,
like he was
Cage
constantly like a junkie that needed a fix through the whole movie.
I think Nicolas Cage is turning into a caricature of himself, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the best thing to say is that nobody can play Nick Cage like Nick Cage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, Raising Arizona isn't like that. It's like he's a different person in that movie.
It's kind of crazy, too.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think they just, they liked that aspect of him and just let him go nuts with it, but it kind of took over the movie.
Yeah.
You weren't a fan, then?
It was weird.
I feel bad. I recommended it to you.
It's okay. Yeah, so our next thing, of course, after that, so now we have, this is kind of a bonus that Jonathan Q went to a Star Trek convention, and there was a panel, I guess, with Scott Bakula, and he talked a little bit about Lord of Illusions, so here is that.
Thank you. Hi. Hello. Thanks for coming. Happy to be here. You played Detective Harry D'Amour in Lord of Illusions. Yes, I did. And I just wanted to know what your experience was like making that movie and how you got into that. What was working with Clive Barker like? Well, working with Clive Barker is insane. He is one of the most talented men I've ever met, men or women. And his gifts are so varied, and yet all of them are so profound because he's a wonderful artist, he's a wonderful writer, visually he's stunning, he's very bright, he's a great director, and you were kind of confronted with this man who's also kind of a huge industry in and of, we're shooting the movie and I got 500 more pages, I got to get that delivered by such and such, and then I'm doing this artwork for this children's book, and so it was a little overwhelming being with him, but you know what? He was a fan of Quantum Leap. That's why I got that job. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
One thing that we didn't mention in the introductions, Christian Francis, you created the website for Occupy Midian. That's www.occupymidian.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great little website.
Is there
the thing with that website is that, I do websites for my job, but that one was actually quite a challenge to do because I wanted to make it look like a fan-built site but still be accessible. Because of the whole Occupy Midian fan thing, I thought the worst thing that could possibly happen was have an Occupy Midian website that was just completely looked like a business.
Oh, yeah.
Ages of redesigns going, having to forget all
or having it all done in big flash and splash screen in the beginning. Okay.
Well, and as we're recording this, I'm looking at a backdrop that you made that you can download off of that website. I've got the Decker Rorschach painting, Cabal cut logo.
I'm wearing my
T-shirt of that background. What's that?
I'm wearing my T-shirt of that design at the moment.
Awesome.
I got one.
I'm actually working on. I'm actually working on making myself a T-shirt off that design that you did with the gate and the Morgan Creek logo. I think it was you, right? Yeah. Black and white.
Somebody else did a version, and I sent them an update with different better gates on it. Oh, right.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah. Well, I really like that one. I might end up doing a T-shirt out of it for myself. So that looks really great. Yeah.
Well, I'll send you the updated gates because I redesigned the gates to be exactly the same because they weren't actually.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Thanks. Okay.
Got quite a res of that because I want to find something to do with the gates that is actually good because apart from being a backdrop on something. I think the gates are such a strong symbol of the film that it could be a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Talking of designs, actually, I can on here is quite a good thing too. The shop that will open.
Yes, that's what I was just going to ask you about. What we can look forward to on the website.
Well, you can look forward to the usual, like the Cabal cut T-shirts, the posters. Ryan, you saw the posters of the gates that are there at the Monster Mania. They're going to be up there, signed or plain. But also, I'm now, thanks to Jose, working on a replica of Narcissus T-shirt. So his King Rocker T-shirt that he wears throughout. Which
I've been looking for a better, just some picture of that T-shirt for a long time, and I found that thing on a magazine article, and I scanned it, and it's like half of the T-shirt is not there. So, but
the good thing is I can send you a better quality one because Hugh Ross still owns it.
Oh wow, great, wonderful!
Actually, a lot of them own it because it was from a shop in England called Top Man, which is basically just a normal clothes shop for men, like quite cheap and tacky. But they walked past and just bulk bought a load of them. So Hugh's one is in pristine condition. Oh, wow. That's actually I'm going to have to do quite a lot of tracing, I believe, tracing and colouring in to replicate it. But also that will be branded on the back saying Occupy Midian.
And what is on the front of that shirt?
It'll be Narcissus T-shirt that he wears throughout the whole thing. It's like a cartoon.
Okay.
Skull. But also, I'm getting one of my friends who's an effects guy that worked on things like Prometheus, Batman Begins, Human Centipede 2, Dan. He's building replicas of Narcissus thumb blades.
Oh,
and of course, Sharp, they're just going to be replicas, but we're going to be selling those on there as well. Wow. He's doing a mock at the moment and sending me one next week. So that'll be quite...
and
what about that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
We're probably going to say the same thing as you. That bust of
Narcissus.
I
was going to talk about that. Yeah.
Well, there is going to be. That was the first bust. There is going to be one for each major character. I can't remember the name of the person who's doing, but there is going to be one for each major character, and they're going to be. What we're thinking of is getting Clive and the actor portraying it to sign them because a little plate at the bottom waiting for a space for signatures. So if you buy Narcissus, you'll have Hugh Ross's and Clive Barker's signature on there.
And I actually got to see it in person, and so did Christian. You did too, because it arrived there for Russell to put out on the Occupy Midian table.
It's an absolutely beautiful thing. Really, it's work.
It's a great piece of work, when I saw it the first time, I was like, "Oh no, it's the attack of the flying hands," But it's really, really nice. It's wonderful. It's just an amazing piece, and that story about the T-shirt is just awesome. I had no idea. There's so much good stuff coming out in news right now that it's been crazy. Like this week has just been crazy.
I mean, the good thing is because the effects guys saw it for the first time at Fright Fest, like Jeff Portis and all that. They saw it for the first time, and their reaction was like, "This is what we wanted to make. This is what we thought we were making." And suddenly remembering things but I remember Baphomet's hands coming down and picking him up, and we built this the Baphomet actual animatronics had the big arms coming down and picking up a little Boone puppet and lifting him up, so you could actually see him get picked up instead of in the theatrical version and even in the Cabal cut. Kind of looks like he's levitating until it's a long shot and you see his hands around him.
Yeah.
Well, you do see that in the DVD.
But it's actually, there's a whole thing of the hands actually do come down and he actually is...
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I'm quite glad in the Cabal cut as well, it has the scene of Larsberg actually saying what he is, or Baphomet, saying he's a stone god and he doesn't talk. So, because normally it's just okay, there's a guy suspended and it's kind of...
And he said his blood is volatile.
Yeah, and it sort of says about the bubbling, when it's all bubbling, why he's saying he's destroying Midian because the blood's bubbling.
Yeah, the blood is volatile, and if you make Baphomet angry, he can destroy everything.
Yeah, that reminds me of, you guys remember the Nuncio in the Great and Secret Show?
Yeah.
It was also this kind of fluid that was also very volatile, and it would go up the walls of the containers and all that stuff, and it's always moving around. It kind of reminds me of that. So
yeah.
One thing I was thinking about Nightbreed recently, because I reread it yet again, and completely didn't realise that the original Kinski, that was Jackie, is supposed to be Otis and Clay.
Oh, really?
So, the whole when you read the description of Jackie, it's a man with two faces fused together.
In Cabal.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I don't know, but I presume that when it came to mock-up stage, they realised it was very difficult to make that talk.
Yeah, right. It probably would look too phony if that thing was front and center all the time.
Yeah.
Right now, today, I mean, they would just use CGI, but at that time, it was more complicated.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean, I do hope one of my hopes is them be able to find the print of it before the effects, so they could alter the Baphomet's last moments where he gets all that milky blue stuff all over him. Where it's like, I mean, at the time it was really impressive, but now it kind of, you sit there and go, oh, that sort of ruins it a bit.
I know. You guys know about the restoration of the Star Trek: The Next Generation series?
I've just heard that it happened. I haven't seen it.
Because they're restoring that for 1080 HD, and they're using the actual film stock to recut the episodes again, just like they were done for the TV. And they have all those elements of the special effects, so they actually restored all those effects. And now where you used to see like that milky white glow thing, now you can see all the detail, around those things. And it would be wonderful if, someone from the effects team, or usually these elements would be done by the effects company. They would do that in, a closed set. They would shoot something, they would composite that with several, exposures of the film, of the negative, and they would put that on the film. So who knows where that is? That's one of the other things that,
I'm going to have to look that up, because I'm a big Next Gen fan. I'm surprised it passed me by.
Wow, really? It's been it's been on Amazon, the first series. It's been out for months now.
I suppose it's because I'm basically my knowledge of like TV releases are quite limited. I'm constantly into films, and if it's not on Netflix in that version, I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
But you guys ever saw the documentary Dangerous Days, the making of Blade Runner?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that is a wonderful. Yeah, fantastic. That is a wonderfully teaching document about how movies are made, and you're watching the effects people talk about that, and you see like the actual film elements from the effects, like the spinner, like the little glowing lights on the spinner, and how it was just like a little thing, a little replica, just being zoomed in and out in front of a blue screen or something, and then they have to film the little speck of lights in just completely black around it, just a little speck of light going the same way as the spinner is going, and then they would make another little effect, and they would have to get all those layers of film exposed onto the negative as a composite effect, so you can actually believe that the spinner has its tail light on and it's just moving away, and it's just amazing. All these things must be available for the Nightbreed movie. This has to exist somewhere. So these canisters of FX and stuff like that, this has to come out. I can't believe this is all destroyed. So I refuse to believe that.
It's funny if you watch Weird Al's movie UHF. In a lot of the extra features, he talks about how the entire movie and every single thing about it he just kept in his garage. And it's kind of too bad that Clive wasn't allowed to just keep it all himself. It wouldn't. None of this would have been an issue.
Well, that's another thing. I remember when. You guys remember when Lord of Illusions was being done, and at the same time Hellraiser Bloodline was also being done, and Candyman was out, was being post-produced. I remember reading the coverage of Fangoria magazine, and they would say, we've been to Clive's house, and his house is literally, ceiling high, full of stacks of daily tapes. He's got all the dailies there, and he's got dailies from Candyman, he's got dailies from Lord of Illusions, he's got dailies from Hellraiser Bloodline, and he only directed Lord of Illusions. So I can't imagine, what happened to these things. I mean, I'm sure he must. Who knows if he still has more stuff that hasn't been found at his place? I refuse to believe that he only had 2 VHS tapes of the Nightbreed director's cut. I mean, it just sounds weird.
Keep it all. He might have his experience with Nightbreed might have made him want to keep absolutely everything. So, to his experience, he might have been like, I can't trust anyone else with this. I've got to keep everything here.
Well, and he may have turned his back on Nightbreed because he was so upset.
Oh, you might have a point there, yeah. But still, it sounds really strange to me that Clive would only have 2 tapes of the work print at his house, and it's like, wow, he directed the movie, so I was wondering, what happened? That's one of the questions I would love to know. What happened obviously I know what happened to the movie, but I would really love to know why does he only have that?
Those work prints were, as far as I know, weren't the edited work prints that Mark Goldblatt did, because the ones that they found were rough composites, not the original cut that they handed to the studio to say this is what we've got. Yeah. So so there is somewhere still out there a fully edited version.
Absolutely, there has to be a copy of that in a canister. That's why I think it's so ridiculous that people are saying, well, we don't know where that is, and probably doesn't exist anymore. There's just these 2 tapes, and I'm like, how is that even possible? How does a movie disappear like this? It can't be true. Someone is lying here, and I think it's Morgan Creek.
Well, personally, I think they're at Fox only for the standpoint of Morgan Creek over the last. Well, since they actually got quite excited by the amount of people interested in it, that they would have done maybe just a cursory check. But Morgan Creek's offices aren't like huge warehouses. And when they've been finding other footage, like when they recut together The Exorcist beginning, when Morgan Creek turned around and said, we don't like it, we'll bring in Rennie Harlin to refilm it. When the original director said, or Paul Schrader, I think it was, said, I want to redo it. He had to go to Fox to get his footage because they've got the storage. So nothing's been done at Fox yet. So it's still a big possibility that they could just walk into the huge warehouses at Fox, go up to the end section, and then there is just hundreds of...
Yeah, I mean, who told Mark Miller that they looked for it and they couldn't find it? Was it from Fox or Morgan Creek? I think it was Fox, right?
No, Morgan Creek said they couldn't find it. Because, but Morgan Creek are the people that have to request it from Fox. But now I think it's a kind of a slow process because it's not one of those kind of things you can just say, go tomorrow and have a look. Because it might be a question of having to get certain rights passed and
exactly, and get a team of people to handle the film and archive it and tag it and all that stuff. So, yeah, I guess I would really like to. Maybe further ahead in the process, we'll be able to get some good news about this. And they'll say, well, now they decided to contact, Fox, and they said they're going to look for it, and, maybe they can find it then. I don't know. I really... That's why I'm not very concerned about the Cabal cut in its present form, because I know it's not going to be the definitive restoration thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I really hope it's going to be like a properly done, restored, movie with film elements and all that stuff, and I'm sure when they find the film stock, they'll also find all those effects shots and stuff like that. Yeah. It's got to be somewhere. It just has to be somewhere.
Legally, they have to keep it. They can't just throw things away. I think they have a legal obligation. If they spend that much money of producers or whoever's money, they have to have an account for them.
Well, and if Fox is holding it for Morgan Creek, then you're right. I mean, legally, they can't just lose it or have it destroyed. I mean, it doesn't totally belong to them.
Well, when I'm going to refer Dangerous Days again, the documentary, when Ridley Scott was trying to get the footage back to do his final cuts, they actually discovered that after they found it looked for it several years, and then they eventually found it in a warehouse, it was actually marked for destruction. They actually thought, well, just nobody ever bothered to destroy them, but they had been marked for destruction, which was, something that if you look at the documentary.
They made the first director's cut, the one, where they
No, when they released it in 2009 or something. When was the final cut?
What year was it made?
82 or something like that? Was it?
Because maybe there's a certain amount of time that they have to keep it for, 30 years.
Could be.
That would be nice.
I hope it's not 22 years. That would just be
Yeah, I'm just saying that it could happen because it's happened to Blade Runner, footage that was marked for destruction. So luckily, nobody ever bothered to do it. They just let it, sit in a warehouse and say, well, someone will. So that could have happened, but I don't think this has happened to Nightbreed. I refuse to believe that.
And also referring to the sort of about the documentary, with the upcoming documentary that's going to be made of Nightbreed, I was quite interested to see what your guys' thoughts are, because it's going to be 90 minutes. And personally, I think that can't be long enough to cover the full history of Nightbreed.
I agree.
I mean, they're going to have to leave out if they haven't got behind-the-scenes footage of much of filming, then obviously there's probably going to be quite a bit missing out of that. But it's such a long story that you need a couple of hours at least.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this for hours, and we still haven't discussed all the details.
Yeah, we've dedicated a lot more podcasts to Nightbreed than we had originally planned.
Yeah. On the other hand, of course, not everyone is willing to listen to a couple of nerds talk about a movie. And even if it would be people like Clive Barker, Jeff Portas, the actors, and that would be wonderful. I just really hope that as the process moves forward, that we'll start getting more and more good news. I know there's a lot of good news that's coming out right now, and it really gives me encouragement to believe in the future for this. So.
Well, and after we hit our 5,000 signature goal on the petition, that thing has been quietly gaining signatures without us really even pushing it. Right now it's at 7,070 something signatures, and
I think it's 7,700.
I think I said that, and I transposed some numbers. I think it's really 7,070 something. All right. But yeah. So I mean, that thing has been quietly just it keeps on building momentum on its own without us our help so much. If you want to leave us feedback or questions, you can reach us on the web at www.clivebarkercast.com. Our email is you can send us an email, occupymidian@gmail.com. The forum where we talk a lot about Clive Barker stuff is www.timewinds.com/Clive. We have a Facebook page, and there's also the Occupy Midian group where you can find us a lot more often. And Twitter is @BarkerCast and @OccupyMidian. And go on iTunes and leave us a review. We actually got our, ever since we redid the podcast on iTunes, we got a new review from Craig Casipe. And he says, they do a great job of bringing the love of Clive Barker for others to share. The podcast has a real candid feel that invites great guests and content. It's a great source for support of Occupy Midian. So thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig. I really appreciate you guys being out there listening to us.
Yeah. So join the Occupy Midian group, sign the petition. We're planning on doing another Occupy Midian on location. Hopefully, if this works out from the Fright Fest one that's, as we're recording this, just got over. So Christian, I'm assuming you didn't record the Q&A and the intro for that, right?
No, Russell asked me to, but I didn't get the text till I left the cinema.
Oh, okay. So the people at the Hellraiser podcast said that they would give us whatever they got, and I'm hoping that works out, and we're going to sort of do a crossover podcast with them, talking about Occupy Midian and about that Fright Fest screening.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yeah. So that should be our next one, maybe next weekend we'd record that. Because I don't want to, for their sake, I don't want to make it too far away from the actual event.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right. So I think that's it. I think we're done. Oh, you can hear more from Crystal Rain at www.bringbacknightbreed.blogspot.com.
Hello, this is Ryan again. In the original airing of this episode, we had the song Lost and Found by Kronos right here. In order to respect the rights holders, we've removed it from the episode. I recommend you find Lost and Found by Kronos and give it a listen. Thanks for understanding. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end.